Hello and welcome everybody. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight or this morning from whatever time zone you are joining us at. For me, it's 1 o'clock here in Scotland, but I really appreciate everybody coming along. So first of all, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give you a little bit of an idea about what's to come into the event, and then we'll get things started. Cool. So the event itself, I'll introduce the speakers in a wee bit, but the event itself is going to kind of cover four main topics. We're looking at the Keep 45 update. We are then going to talk about All-Stars and PvP. We're going to talk about the recent alt account bans, and we're going to talk about the mechanics. And so throughout this event, we will be having questionnaires with some gift card giveaways to one random person that answers the questionnaires. Basically, this is part of my university dissertation research kind of thing. I must say, by the way, nice to meet you all. My name is Chaz or Charlie. Feel free to call me whatever you want, as long as it's not too offensive. But yeah, so this is kind of, I really appreciate if you guys can fill out the questionnaires in between kind of topics and things like that. Like I said, I'm doing this part of my kind of university dissertation. So I'm studying the factors that influence the sale of items within mobile video games. But enough of the boring stuff. Let's get on with the event. So our speakers for today is Singh, very well known, very well respected player. So he'll be absolutely great to listen to. We have Akayasha, also known as Red Evony. He's constantly putting out great kind of YouTube tutorials and things like that. Always great content. Miser, again, brilliant content. Great to see. And then we have Derek Defies. Derek isn't with us right now. I think he's running a little bit late. Hopefully he'll be jumping in shortly. But yeah, if the speakers, do you guys want to go ahead and introduce yourself, Singh? Do you want to go first?
Yeah, hey, what's going on, guys? Sing here. Man, I feel like I just did a YouTube intro. uh, yeah, no, I'm happy to be here. Thanks for organizing this, Chaz. Sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, no worries at all.
Uh-oh. Think his college Wi-Fi dropped or something.
Oh, I'm happy I don't have the worst internet here.
Sorry about that. Briefly disconnected there. Got my internet got spiked. Sorry, I don't know if I missed much there. Aka's been saying hello. I think we're back now. Let me just share the screen.
Yep, you're
Sorry
back.
about that, everyone.
Nah, you're good, dude.
I think my Discord's kind of crashing everything at the minute. But yeah, Aka, you're right to say hello, and I think you're on mute right now. Just introduce yourself.
Okay. Hi everyone. I'm Akayasha. You can call me Aka. I don't know if you know, but I do YouTube stuff for Evony. Videos, stuff, random chats, things like that. So thank you everyone for being here. Thank you, Chaz, for organizing this. And thank you, fellow speakers for joining in as well. I hope we have a good one.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. Should be a good event. Fingers crossed. Miser, do you want to go on up?
Sure. Miser here. I've been around for probably longer than most people out there, and I don't know why I still am, but I'm here. So happy to see you all, and hopefully we'll have some good discussions.
Yeah, definitely. I think you kind of sum up the mood of Evony right there. It's a bit of a love-hate relationship at the minute. But yeah, anyway, so let's get into it. So the first kind of thing that we're going to be looking at is the Keep 45 update. So guys, what are your kind of general thoughts on the Keep 45 update? Good thing, bad thing? How do you think this is going to affect the kind of, the levels between the free-to-play players and those that are coining? What do you think about this in terms of how much of a positive is it for the game? Is it a positive, or do you think it's kind of, really separating the boundary between those free to play and those that are coining?
I'll go first here. First off, Miser, man, I remember watching your stuff when I was learning the game. You were a lot of help, so you have been around here a minute, dude. Um,
Yeah, right. Miser is the original OG.
he's the OG, bro. He's
Yeah.
the original gangster here. Um, I think K45 definitely exacerbates the gap between free to play and pay to win. I think it's targeted highly towards the people who are getting bored or are getting bored at K40. Some people have been K40 for a year plus, and they have nothing really to go for afterwards. So part of the charm of the game, I think, is having building goals. So, from most people's perspective, I'd say 90%, 95%, it's really just the finish line has been pushed so much further. But at the same time, I don't know. I don't often like to advocate for Evony, but I'm just speaking about my honest opinion. Like, I really think it's kind of cool to have goals again, like building goals. Unlocking another military academy level, being able to finally use those scrolls, and seeing my teammates kind of push up higher and higher in level. It's a cool thing for me personally. But I can see how it's disheartening for a lot of people. One thing I think that is not so bad is that everyone's kind of in the same boat. Every alliance is sort of in the same boat, so everyone's upset about it, and everyone has the struggle, of trying to like climb up the next levels now, go to K41. Um, yeah, so I mean, it was cool how they had new buffs come in, but then also new debuffs, and I don't know, it's still settling. I feel like K45 is still settling. Like, I don't know what you guys think, but that's my thoughts.
Okay, I'll go
Okay.
next. I don't know.
Okay,
You go.
mine's wrong.
Okay,
Uh, uh,
I'll go then.
yeah, go on, Mesa. Yeah.
I'm on the other side of the spectrum, right? Because you know that I don't spend. And
Yeah.
there's a reason that I'm called the miser, right? I mean, I have spent on the game, but compared to most people in this game, I spend very little. My main argument and my main issue with the game since Keep 40 has not been that you shouldn't set the goalposts further. I think that's an absolute important thing to do in a game. The game has to continue. You have to feel some kind of progression. But when you lock it behind gates, behind pay gates, and you just cut off all the players, it just increases the gap between low spenders and high spenders. So my argument since Keep 35, Keep 40 has been that when you do that, you need to open up the gates that you've set behind, make Keep 40, Keep 35 more accessible, so that the lower end can actually move up as well, while your higher end have more to achieve.
That's a great point.
Yeah, I think that's very good. I'm kind of somewhere in the middle between both where I think where both of you are, in the sense that I agree that it's good to have goals and things for people to strive for and achieve. I personally think that the K45 update was way too soon. We're looking at the higher end. We're probably looking at the higher. Okay, let me be generous and say 5% of players. The majority of the player base are nowhere near K40. Speaking for myself, I'm moving to 38. I'm not even close to 40. I'm not close to T15s or anything like that. And a lot of the player base are in the same situation. So now that it's been moved, it just, it has this feeling of, trying to make a full court free throw. It's almost impossible. So, some people push on gradually, while others are, as we can see, people have been calling it quits. Um, so the K45 update for me has some good parts in the sense that, it gives people more to achieve. I think that it was too soon, and maybe they could have given people that sense of achievement in different ways. Make the game more competitive, make it so that people have more to fight for and more enjoyment when they're fighting, instead of just, keep level, new buildings, things like that. That's me.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. Just to interrupt the topic a wee second, Derek the Fies has joined us, so I'm just going to ask Derek if you don't mind saying hello, giving yourself a quick introduction, and then we'll get right back into the Keep 45 kind of chat, if that's all right with you, Derek.
Hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, man.
Okay, great. Yeah. So, hey guys. I don't know if
Hi, Derek.
What's going
everyone
on, man?
knows, but yeah, I'm just a guy that cares about the mechanics of Evony. I'm not a competitive player like a lot of other people in here. My whole goal has always been to try to figure out how the game works since they don't give us any information. And you can find my YouTube at Derek Defies.
Yeah, cool, great. Well, thank you very much for joining us today, Derek. Really appreciate it. I mean, you're a master of the mechanics, so it's going to be great to hear your kind of thoughts on the mechanics when we got into that topic in a bit more detail. But yeah, just going back onto the Keep 45 there. I mean, for me, I've been playing Evony the King's Return for like the last 5 or so years, maybe 6 years. I'm not quite sure. I've kind of lost track at this point. I've played across a few servers and things like that. And as somebody who's been a free-to-play player, I'm now kind of low coining. Yeah, I think it's good to kind of keep on adding things to the game because I appreciate, the key 40s will get bored and things like that. But personally, I don't think keep 45 is the right direction. They keep on adding on these different keep levels and things like that, and the game just kind of gets harder and harder. And it's quite nice when you feel that kind of achievement. When you get to the higher keep levels. But often, free-to-play players or the kind of low-spending players, they just can't keep up with it. So if you reach that kind of top level, if you do manage to do it as a low coiner, as a free-to-play player, then it's really not long around the corner until the keep level gets raised again. I mean, this seems to kind of be a bit of a pattern for Evony. We had I think originally it was keep 25, right? Miser, you probably know this a little bit better than me. Then keep 27, then 30, then 35, 40, and now 45. And it just kind of seems to be that that's the kind of way that they are increasing the longevity of this game, which I understand because you don't want to make people bored, but at the same time, as somebody that's played as free to play and is a low coiner, it does kind of suck. Personally, that the goalposts keep on being moved. Like, I like the idea, there's always something to work on. But maybe continuous keep upgrades and things like that isn't really the play moving forward. Because, I mean, how silly are we going to get in a few years' time? Are we going to be talking about the keep 55 or keep 60 update? Like, for me, it's just getting a little bit crazy. I think there's other ways that they can kind of diversify, creating longevity in the game and things like that. But one thing I would say though is that I know this was outside of the Keep 45 update, but the new gear update I think is actually being quite free to play and low coin friendly. With the couple of gear sets that they brought out, I appreciate Civilization gear just got a new refinement system added in, the advanced refining, which is obviously targeted towards the kind of larger coiners and things like that. But yeah, no, I do think that there's a bit of a balance there. There is some kind of things that are possible for the low coiners and free to play players, which is great to see. But yeah, overall, I just think that pushing the keep level isn't really sustainable. Sing, obviously, you've kind of talked there about how you kind of like the keep 45 update. It's good to see your teammates kind of growing and the goal moving towards it. Do you think this is actually sustainable though, going forward in Evony? Because I mean, we keep on getting these keep updates.
Well, as far as the player base is concerned, absolutely not. I mean, we need people to play with. As far as the game is concerned, like the actual company, I just think they're trying to find ways to make as much money as possible. And the way they do that is by focusing entirely on where the money comes from. And just based on update after update, I think they're just looking at that small 3% or so that spends on a regular basis. And I think they're just thinking about why they spend and then they appease that, really. So, same thing with the advanced refining. Like, there's no more Civ gear coming out. There's going to be all these refined stones piling up. They need a way for them to be incentivized to coin for refined stones or make their sink in the game for refined stones. So, the game is doing this to maximize their profits, whether it's a good gaming practice, ethical, or good for the community and the longevity of the game. Absolutely not. Um, yeah, I think from their perspective, they're just trying to milk this as much as they possibly can before anything bad happens to the game. Um, and yeah, I don't know. After hearing Miser and Aka talk a little bit more about it, yeah, I really like thinking from the perspective of someone that maybe doesn't spend as much on the game or just doesn't spend at all. I could see that being like quite demoralizing. So, um, especially if you really love the game. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It's for me, it's been pretty demoralizing and things like that. Jake, can we pick up any pros from the Key 45 update, Miser and Aka? Can you guys, is there anything that you see positive about this update coming in? Or is it all kind of a little bit doom and gloom, love-hate relationship with Evony type of stuff?
Give me a couple hours to think on it, and I'm sure I'll come up with something. I mean,
It's not
they
all
have
bad.
they have nice art. Like, I'll give them that. They're artists. They're digital artists. They're phenomenal. Like, the buildings and stuff looks great.
Yeah, so that's about it, the graphic.
Okay, positive about K45. Well, there's a lot of negative stuff to say. There's a lot of negative stuff to say. But I'm going to try and be fair about this. One good thing that they did when they brought out the K45 update was the defense advance expansion that they did in the academy. For me, I think that was a very good thing because it allowed people access to that defense and defensive boosts to their stats, doing the research and things like that. I think that was very helpful in the way they did it. Do I think it was enough? No, I don't. But it was a good thing that they did. Yeah, I think that's pretty much about it. The K45 update, there's yeah, I mean if you're looking at it, I don't really see, when you look at it overall, how that it can be net positive. And going to one of the points that Singh raised is that for low coiners, low spenders, free to play players, K45 is impossible. I'm going to be very honest now. It's impossible. Right now, the way the game is, with the level of resource intake that we have, speed ups and things like that, it's impossible for a low coiner or a free to play player to achieve K45. That's my view. I don't know what you guys think.
Yeah, especially with the alt bans and everything, it just makes it that much harder.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I totally agree with you there. Anything else to add on to the Keep 45 discussion? Anybody want to talk some more on that, or will we get moving on onto the next lot?
Well, I just wanted to mention with the Keep 45 update and with the extra updates with the research that we do, they basically expanded how much percentage buffs that you can get with your keeps. And in a way, this kind of dilutes the flat buffs that people have been using for these tier 1 traps. And because, percent buffs are going to be applied to higher tier troops, and having more percent buffs make it so that higher tier troops are just stronger. So I think it is another way to answer a problem that a lot of people were having with the tier 1 traps, is to introduce all these new buffs. In order to do that, a lot of what they did is introduce 5 more levels, so people can obtain these buffs in a way. I would say the biggest problem for new players coming in isn't necessarily going to be to achieving the 45. It's a lot of the new stuff that they continuously add into the game. Imagine when you came into this game, you didn't have this garden that you had to put together. You didn't have all these extra buildings that you didn't know what they did. Someone just coming into the game is going to be much more confused.
Such a good
It's
point.
going to be overloaded with different things. Oh,
Yeah,
hey,
I agree. Yeah.
I have to tickle this little girl that's in my keep. Right? That
Oh,
wasn't there
man.
when I joined. Yeah, yeah. Now half of Evony has foot fetishes. So like these
Yeah,
are
I
the
literally just got asked in chat for a foot picture, so I can back that one up.
so this
Oh.
is going to be the challenge for new players coming in. But again, this was another answer to to those tier 1 defenses that people had, because I haven't seen any introduction to any more flat buffs. So that was my take on it.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point that you raised there, Derek.
Yeah, it makes me
Um,
wonder if like, the new meta is going to be just tanking with top tiers instead of relying on those bottom tiers. But then it's just back to old Evony where it's just whoever, spends more will end up doing better. That was the one like saving grace for I think in the K40 days you could build a proper cav trap or ground trap and you would still be able to survive for quite some time and get some positive defenses. And I think the game feels better when you're destroying coiners. Like I think it's a good feeling people get. So I don't know if that's going to be going away with these 8K or 8 million March sizes like 3,500 4K buffs versus the flat keeps that haven't had too much spent on them.
I think it's still there. It's just much harder. Because what I've seen some people doing now is that, okay, previously for the T1 traps, you were looking at, let's say, 100, 150 million.
Hmm.
Now, what I've seen some people doing is pushing to 250, 300 million. And I've also seen people now moving into T2.
Yeah.
So you don't just have T1, you have T2. So it's, you know, for for the people trying to do the flat defense, they're going in that direction, but it's an endless thing.
There was a point with K40 where we would be facing behemoth keeps with extremely thick layers, like 70 mil power with 200 mil cavaliers all the way down, and we would have a
Mm.
really hard time getting through that. Not just T1, but all the way up. And we've sort of modeled some of our builds after that experience. And I don't know, I'm curious to see how it'll perform now. I have noticed so far that at least in RSP rallies where we do have some K42s, 41s, and some people with close to 3K buffs and quite high range attack, that offense is getting insane. Like we did like a 26 bill cav rally the other day. And I mean I was 16 bill ground clear. Like that's kind of been happening, but
Well,
it's getting a little bit. I don't know how these C1, no offense if anyone's I don't know how these C1 players keep going if they haven't been keeping up. It's a little bit heartbreaking to see people who've, spent years building a keep just get wiped out by recent coining. Yeah, and they're not bad players, they're not bad players.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, thank you very much, everyone. I'm going to move it on there a little bit just so that we can kind of stay on time schedule. So the next kind of thing that we're going to do is we're going to do a question round. So this is going to be for a giveaway. So if you're in the audience, I'm going to put a link into the Discord events channel. So it's in hashtag events. And this is just a quick survey. So basically, like I said, I'm doing this as part of my university research dissertation thing. So it's a few quick fire questions. If you stick your Discord username in there, you'll be put in with the chance to win some gift cards from a giveaway. So there's going to be 4 of these kind of quick fire question rounds. It's just kind of, I can't remember exactly what's in the first lot, but it's to do with like kind of like payment and things like that, how often you coin, and all those kind of things. So we'll just take a quick 2-minute break whilst we get some people filling in on that. And then we'll move on, and then just before we start the next question round, I'll do the live spin of the wheel, and we'll get the winner announced. So we'll just take a wee quick 2-minute break just whilst people fill that in, please. And then we'll be talking about All-Stars and PvP, which I think is going to be very interesting off of the back of this Keep 45 update and things we're talking about there with the buffs and such. So the question is just in the events channel, but I'll also post it in the events discussion channel as well. Any issues, just let me know. So yeah, we'll just give that 2 minutes just to get filled up. Yeah, thank you to everybody that's doing the questionnaire. It's an absolutely massive help for myself. Lovely. I have absolutely no idea what CPE is, but here, feel free to tell me. But yeah, so just a heads up, guys, on the questionnaires. So the kind of things you put in, I'll display the Discord name in the spin the wheel, but nobody else will see your answers. And then I'll strip your Discord name away from your answers, so it's just the answers, and I'll kind of use that for TheriaGames.com, which is the guide site that I've started up and running. And yeah, also it's going to be used in my university dissertation. So yeah, really appreciate everybody that's gone ahead and answering. Whilst you guys are doing that, why don't we move on to the next topic? I'll announce the winners just before we start the next question round. All right, okay, so it's continuing professional education. All right, okay. Yeah, hopefully it won't be that bad. But yeah, anyway, on to the kind of next topic. So we're going to be talking about All-Stars and PvP and things like that. I'm not going to talk a lot about this one because I've never played All-Stars. So, I'm quite new on this kind of stuff, but thankfully we have a lot of experienced speakers who can talk about All-Stars or just PvP in general kind of thing. So yeah, how have you guys been thinking about what do you think is going to be happening with All-Stars with this update? And how do you think All-Stars has been getting on? Is it still entertaining for people that play All-Stars and things like that? Or do you think it's kind of losing the buzz around it? Or just what's your general thoughts? I mean, like I say, I've never actually played All-Stars myself, unfortunately. I've just started fresh on server 1404, 1404, I guess. So yeah, quite far off getting to that stage. I'm keep 30 at the minute. Like I said, I've been playing for a while, but I always kind of usually get around keep 30 to keep 35 before I refresh.
Yeah, the early game is fun. I get it. That first SVS, it's a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, we got that next weekend. I can't wait.
Nice, enjoy. You get to play some novice players out there. It's always the best.
Were any of you here for the very first server versus server that was ever done?
No, I'm
Sorry,
guessing you.
what?
How was that experience?
What?
That was an experience.
I can only imagine.
my-
Man. How was the lag?
It, if you can call being frozen in place and unable to move lag, it was so bad that people were permanently stuck on the other server.
Oh
my
no.
goodness.
I don't know how much money they lost because it was just like a trend to just, get cash back from Google or from Apple because the game, like, it just didn't work. They advertised it for months, like, oh, we're going to give you this great experience, the server versus server. You'll be able to compete because there was barely any PvP before that. I was like a year and a half into the game. And then they released this thing and it just doesn't work. People are stuck. People can't move. People are dead. Like, it was so dumb. That's where those leveling packs that you get, like every keep level, you get like a pack with gems and stuff. That was their apology for server versus server.
Oh, nice. Spend more money.
That's why that exists in the game.
That's hilarious. Jeez. I feel like SVS lost its charm a little bit after how expensive everything got to repair. And just the imbalance. K35 versus K34 versus K33. Like, the 33 still has a chance, but, I mean, 8 mil March size versus 4 and something else.
I think it's more the imbalance than anything else. The cost of healing you can kind of deal with, if you've been saving up your resources and source of life for a while. But it's the imbalance. The imbalance is crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like you're a K36, you've been in battlefield, you're feeling good, you drop your bubble during SPS and you're one shot killed. It's like what the hell? So I think okay, we're supposed to be talking about all stars, I know, but on the SPS thing, the fear factor is big. The fear of just losing everything. I think that's a really big thing. And it stops a lot of people from playing. It really does.
I agree, but I think that also is what's so fun about SVS is that there's no other mode where your heart is just racing. You're on the other side especially if you're a small keep that can be zeroed in one hit. your heart is racing the entire time you're on the enemy server, and I think that is more of the exciting part of it. Is you could still, I mean, we see small players get in the top 5 all the time. You know, it's a lot of skill, and it's a rite of passage. You know, if you're a small player and you're in the top 5 compared to these other players that spend a lot of money and have a lot of power, it's kind of, a badge of honor to wear.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
definitely,
yeah.
definitely. I think, if you're a small player, that's really the time when you should get into SVS because you can do so much stuff. You can roast, you can do traps, you can do many things. Once you get to the point where you can't ghost your troops anymore, then you're kind of screwed. That's when you really need to start working on your defenses and things like that. Because you can be hunting someone, you have a target, you're trying to hit this guy, and then from nowhere, boom, you get a hit, zeroed. I mean, that's happened to me before. So, um, it's a thing.
Yeah, it's
For me, server versus server, like the concept of it is fantastic. I think competing against other servers is just such a great component of the game. I just don't like how they implement it. I think that one, the rewards just they're not sufficient enough for most people to want to risk it all unless they
Yeah,
need wings,
that's a very
right?
good point. Very, very
It's
good
just
point.
not good enough. And one thing that's really surprising to me too is almost every other game of a similar nature to Evony, like every other game that I've played, they have alternating ones where they have a server versus server. That's the real thing. You lose your stuff, it's gone. And then they have one that is like it's like a bi-weekly alternate version of it where no matter what happens, free for all, it's all healed, just like Battlefield at the end of the weekend. Everything's back. And that allows people that are not coiners to actually participate and have that world PvP experience. Because otherwise, you just got people in a bubble waiting for their bubble to one day drop and be out of the game. They don't get a PvP experience.
Yeah, that's quite an interesting point that you just brought up. I really quite like that idea about the kind of alternating SVSs, where like one that's kind of for real and you can lose troops and things like that as you normally would, and then one that's a little bit more kind of free to play friendly. Yeah, I think that's a really interesting idea actually. But yeah, so what's your guys' kind of thoughts? Moving on a bit towards kind of all stars and things like that.
So All Stars historically has been like the reason I pretty much played. Like I had a lot of drive towards doing, having a good experience doing well in All Stars. I mean, up until the last All Stars, still like I really don't. For me personally, I didn't think that has faded as much. I do see that cheating is not there anymore, which is nice to see, or at least it's not visible. Um, I don't know how it's gonna go down this K45 update. I reckon it's gonna be based on whoever has the highest rally size is gonna be impactful. I think it's gonna be more weighted towards who has spent the most or has the most alts or has the most RSS or whatever it happens to be, rather than skill again. But that's every All Stars. It gets more and more like that. But I think now more than ever with the rally sizes, like you're gonna have a higher one tap capability. You're gonna have more people that could join the rally. That rally size is going to be so key. So if there's a K45 out there, they have a pretty big edge. But I mean, that was the same thing when K40 dropped. But I guess, the way Evony scales with keep building, it seems to be quite heavy for K45. Um, Personally, I mean, I'm not crazy excited like I used to be. I'm still excited for All Stars. And among the community of people that I know, I think the like innocence of like your first few All Stars, like it's kind of gone for some people. I'm sure in C5 and C4 maybe there's still like a lot of like passion for it and a lot of hype for it. But at least I could speak to like the folks that I'm around in C2 and C1 and a little bit in C3. I think it's not as like what it used to be. Like the hype for it is not as what it used to be. I think Challenge is probably a little bit more hype than All Stars now.
Sorry, Saint. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, yeah.
Do you think that's because of the way All Stars is played, or do you think that's because of the rewards?
I think people stop caring after the first round because of the rewards, but I think as general dissatisfaction with the game is the reason that people have slowly lost interest generally, or their interest has declined a bit generally.
Mm.
Yeah, so you kind of touched on the challenge being a bit more, exciting for some of the players. What's your kind of thoughts on challenge and things like that? I've got some people asking, they kind of want to know your opinions on Battle of Challenge. So has anybody got any kind of thoughts on that? Again, I've not played in Battle of Challenge, so I'll kind of keep out of this discussion. But what's your guys? Why do you think it's a little bit more hyped and things like that?
I think challenge actually involves this teamwork that you've made with your alliance
Yep.
that you've done over and over with Battlefield. So you get to play more as a team and make Evony a team game. Whereas sometimes when you're playing with strangers you never played before, it's it's a hit and miss. Did they join your Discord? Are they able to communicate? Somebody's starting a rally, but can you actually communicate that and involve the teamwork? Because we talk about buffs and how much people spend in the game, but good teamwork can outplay that. And my alliance is always in challenge, but there's usually a very low power, and it's just exciting to see us topple over players, like over alliances that have so much more power than us, because it's just it gives us that uh feeling of like, okay, we were able to conquer these players that are bigger than us, and it's just pure skill at that point. So I think challenge allow the fact that it allows you to play with people that you are familiar with. I think that's a big deal about it.
Yeah, I agree with that. And also, if I can add to that, I mean, I really think they need to fix the power brackets with challenge because sometimes you have matchups where it's like, I don't know, you have a 350 bill alliance versus like a 10 bill alliance. I mean, that's the one part that's a little bit annoying. I call it whack-a-mole because it's literally most of the time just everyone soloing just because of the way, at least for us, I mean, RSP is an oddity for C2. I really think they need to redo challenge and have it based on power brackets. So if your alliance is in, I don't know, 200 bill plus, it's in one bracket, 100 bill to 200 bill in another bracket, whatever it happens to fall into, whether it's C1 or C freaking 8, doesn't matter. The thing that would be a lot more challenging, a lot more fun, a lot more action throughout the battlefield. It'll be rewarding for the smaller folks maybe as well. Um, but I don't know, just my 2 cents.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think challenge is a much better variation of All Stars. I mean, you have the whole teamwork component and all that. But also, yeah, the only complaints I ever hear about challenge is, I mean, when it's not lag, is that people just get bad matches up, right? They just get matched up with people that they can't have fun playing against. Um, Other than that, I think it's pretty good.
Yeah, my personal experience with challenge matchups, it's either you're matched up with an alliance that is way too strong for you and you get killed in the first 15 minutes, or you're matched up with an alliance that is much weaker than you and you spend the 2 hours pretty much doing nothing. So I like the teamwork part. I think, I agree with that. If they could do something about the matchups, that would definitely be much better.
And and just for all the battlefields, I think all the battlefields should only last an hour. This 2 hours thing is ridiculous. I mean, maybe for challenge you could do 2 hours because you have more players in it, but man, 2 hours for a bog or bach is just so ridiculous. It's
I reckon they
exhausting.
allow 25 people into the battlefield as well, and in an hour time too. Yeah, it'd be a lot more action packed.
You think they do that though?
I don't think they
I
take any of
know,
this advice really.
yeah, because I know you guys gave them that advice on, one of those sessions that you had with them, but I
I
don't think they even considered it.
Yeah, Genghis tried. I tried. I'm not sure if Miser. Miser, did you get a one-on-one with them as well?
No, they only invite spenders.
Ah, okay. So, so then clearly I got the invite. Um, I had to fish for it. Actually, I'm wondering right now if anyone has the invite. If you do, add me because I think they're doing it again. I just don't have the link to sign up. Um, so yeah, big shout out. If anyone has that link, please add me and message me because I want to do it again.
Yeah, no, I mean, I totally agree with the kind of the 1 hour type of thing. 2 hours is it's kind of hard to get, especially when you're playing bulk and bog twice a week. Like that's 4 hours a week that you have to kind of dedicate. And quite often it's quite long, drawn out type of things. I think 1 hour would make things a lot more interesting. Um, yeah, that's interesting to hear that they're doing the Q&A event again between players and the devs. Although from what I've kind of heard before, it's not been the most productive of chats. A lot of people have kind of said it's more of a marketing ploy than anything else.
Yeah,
But it's quite interesting to hear your thoughts and things like that. I'm actually once like I one of the people that I know in like the Scottish. If anybody can't tell, by the way, I'm from Scotland. But one of the people I know in the kind of Scottish gaming sphere knows some of the Evony developers, so it'll be quite interesting. See if I can try and get in touch that way because that'll be quite interesting. Because I feel like the Q&A events that have kind of happened before, yeah, from what I've heard, it's not been great. I mean, saying you've been in them before, how do you feel? Like, do you actually think that they listen to you in these kind of events, or do you think, some people would say it's a marketing ploy?
they took some feedback. I think like very small amount of it, but no, I think yeah, partially it's a marketing ploy, but partially I think it's also they're trying to figure out how they can make more money. So I think they're like fishing for our needs to figure out what we want so they could monetize it. Like what's the next thing to coin for? So uh yeah, because they clearly didn't listen to like 80 or 90% of what I suggested to them because they're furthering the gap between pay to win and free to play, but it is what it is.
Anyway, I'm going to have to move on there with the topic just so we can stay on track. But thank you all very much for your thoughts on the All Stars. So I'm going to do a spin the wheel of the last questionnaire that everybody filled in.
Good luck.
So good luck to everybody. Let's put this on full screen, and off we go. Oh. And Sheriff, congratulations. Cool. So I will get in touch with you after the event and we'll arrange your gift card. So it's of £25, $25 or equivalent kind of value. But yeah, congratulations to our first winner. Nice one.
Nice.
So what I'm going to do now is, let's back out this. I'm going to throw up the next question. I'm going to put that in chat. So question round 2. So I'll put that in chat now. I'll put it in the events chat and the events discussion chat. But yeah, congratulations to our winner. So this is questionnaire number 2 now going in. I've just put it into events and events discussion. Good luck, everybody. Again, I really appreciate you guys filling it in. It's a massive help to me in what I'm trying to do with my my dissertation. Yeah, so I'll just give everybody a couple of minutes just to get on that and fill that in, and then we'll get moving on to the next topic, which is going to be talking about the alt account bans. I know it's kind of been briefly touched on already, but I'd like to go in a little bit deeper kind of detail and get your thoughts and things like that. Payment methods question needs a multi-select. That is a very good point. Because RSP players max out their credit cards and they have to use crypto. That is a great point. Let me go see if I can quickly make that an edit.
What?
That's quite funny. Yeah, sorry, I should have set that up to be a multi-select. That's my bad.
Good.
Sorry, guys. This is my first time kind of running such an event like this, so it's going to be a bit of a learning curve for myself, as you guys can probably tell in the audience. So apologies for that. Let me see if I can edit it. If not, if you guys wouldn't mind sticking it. Seeing what country do you reside, if you guys wouldn't mind sticking it in that'd be absolutely brilliant. But I'll try and get that changed.
I'm from the States. Did you ask me that? I wasn't sure who that was for.
I didn't know, but yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, no pink gems option. Yeah, I don't really think that one was a very appropriate. So unfortunately, it doesn't look like I can change the options. But if anybody would mind, if you do use extra payments, if anybody would mind sticking it in the what country you reside box as well, that'd be most appreciated. It just goes towards me kind of collecting data and things like that. I'd really appreciate that. A bit of a mess up on my behalf. Like I said, it's all a learning curve, right? But yeah, whilst you guys are just finishing up on that, we'll get moving on to the next topic. And same as before, I'll spin the wheel for the gift card winner, just before we get into the next kind of questionnaire as well. Cool. So let's move on. So we have the alt account banning, and this is a bit of a hot topic. I think that it's really quite interesting because, with the divide that Key 45 has made between the big coiners and the free to play and the kind of low spending coiners, the alt account banning that's been going on has just kind of increased that gap, in my opinion. But also, I don't think it's all doom and gloom. From what I've seen previously, there's always alt account bans around keep updates. So it's actually quite a useful way to tell when a new keep update's coming, because alts do get banned, and they'll also get banned right afterwards. I mean, we saw it with keep 35 pretty big, keep 40 and keep 45 again. So yeah, I think it's actually quite a useful way to actually figure out when are these keep updates coming. But what do you guys think? Do you guys think it is just about the keep updates, or do you think Evony is going to be cracking down on alts a lot more? And yeah, I've just had a really good chat, a really good thing in the chat as well about the reduction of stamina on monster packs as well. So not even are they banning alt accounts, they're also making it a lot harder, to actually use them. So they've reduced the stamina packs and things like that, which is obviously quite a low costing pack. I think that's $5 if I'm not mistaken. So it's in the reach of quite a lot of players. Yeah, what's your guys' thoughts on that? I see that you're wanting to talk about the stamina pack. So do you want to take it away?
Yeah, sure. No, I really think it's terrible for the game to do this. I mean, there's a lot of games that have alts and secondary accounts, multiple accounts, farms, etc. And the developers are perfectly fine with it because they understand it's part of the culture of the game after a certain point. Like anyone that's serious, for the most part, as long as you own a computer, you have the capability of setting up alts, and that's after a certain point, it's just about effort, really. Like what you want to put in terms of, well, I'm sure there's obviously financial aspect of purchasing a computer, but generally, I think they're doing this so they can again put more money in their pockets, try to force people into the spending mentality. Like the spending is the only way you can get RSS or whatever it happens to be. I think there was even like a mail from CS saying you're not allowed to hit players, like if their bubble drops and take their RSS or something. It's just absurd. That was probably the worst thing they've done is go so hard on these alts because if there is anything that free to play benefits from, it's this. Um, and likewise with the stamina pack adjustment, I'll call it. It really hit free to play or lower spenders a lot harder than it's going to hit the bigger coiners. So again, I kind of understand Evony's mentality as far as, hey, let's take away their options of getting RSS and these things for free, and kind of point them towards the packs and see if that'll increase revenue. That's probably the line of logic that they took, but the impact that it has is not as positive. I think it makes a lot of people like at the edge of quitting. But I also do think that they're going to lighten up on alts now. Like you mentioned, like every keep update, they do a mass banning. I've been through and two of them now. Um, and yeah, this is the worst it's been, I think. Like, I don't think it's ever been worse than this. I'm not sure, maybe Miser knows, but yeah, they should, and I would predict that they're gonna calm down with this.
For stamina packs, I think they still have one available. That's after you, what is it? Enhance one of your generals a few times, you might have a chance to get like a special pack, and it's the same as the old stamina pack, if I recall correctly. But I think the whole point was they think that people don't enhance the alt generals, and therefore the alt generals, the alt keeps don't get access to the stamina pack. But there's still one. available. As for banning alts, I don't know if I should mention this, but I have many alts. I continuously run at least 10 of them, and none of them got banned. But that's because I don't farm my alts like a lot of people do. I actually use them as 10 extra players. So anytime I need a rally, I have 10 extra players joining, which is a completely different way to use alts. But that's what I've been doing instead of farming them. So if Evony continues on this path to ban alts that you farm, that you burn, that you just get for resources, you could still use them as an extra, reinforcement or something like that in a SVS or even a battlefield scenario if not all your players joined.
Yeah, I mean that's quite an interesting kind of thought on different ways to kind of use alts and things like that. It's funny that you're talking about having your 10 accounts and things like that. I mean, personally, I've got quite a few accounts. I'm currently sat next to a dual Xeon computer 56 core, so I think we can all try and figure out how many alts that is. It can push upwards of 60, 70. So yeah, I'm quite experienced in the alt department and things like that. I actually only had one warning out of all my accounts. I think I was quite fortunate. I've heard some players got quite a few accounts banned and things like that. I think as well, it's just like once accounts start to get banned, you need to be a little bit kind of careful. Like, again, it's around about these keep updates. People start getting banned. So yeah, after keep update, don't hit your alt and things like that, because that's historically when people have been getting hit quite hard by the devs. And we saw that again with the keep 45. Just an interesting point there that people were talking about in the chat. They were saying that the kind of stamina packs when you upgrade your general or whatever to the level 3 stars, I think people were saying. Apparently it's once a month that you can unlock that pack.
Yeah, that's the pack I mentioned.
Oh yeah. So that's quite interesting. I actually didn't know that, so that's some new things for me today. But yeah, still sucks off of the kind of the original pack. But yeah, do you guys think that you will still run alts? You guys are still okay with running alts and things like that, despite the recent bans? I mean, personally, I know that I'm still going to be using alts and things like that. I think you just need to be a little bit smart about it. If there's any whiff of a keep 45 update, then stop hitting your farms, a keep update in general, stop hitting your farms. And after a keep update, don't hit your farms again, because that's kind of when they all kind of come around.
I'm keeping mine going for sure. Yeah, I don't plan on stopping personally. Just like you said, farm smart.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think that's the way to do it. I think if you're not running with alts, then you have to be spending some serious amount of cash. I think alts are kind of the ways that most people are playing nowadays, for sure. I mean,
can I jump in real quick? Just want to
go for it, man.
Yeah. I wanted to ask, and I'm also putting this to people in the chat. Like, how many alts do you have? On like rough number.
Right now I have 5, but at my
Okay.
peak I had quite a lot.
Okay.
Like quite a lot.
Yeah, right now I think I'm operating about 10 or something like that, although previously 60, 70.
Yeah, I've been around that area too. Yep.
All right. The reason I ask is because I have one. I have one alt, and most people in my alliance have between 1 or 2. I don't think anybody has. I think the most anyone has is 3 alts, and none of us got affected by it. Like literally, no one in my alliance. I remember this because the day that I saw people posting on YouTube that there's an alt ban, people in my alliance were reading their alts. The day the ban dropped, the day after. So for me, I saw that and I was like, okay, what's going on? And I hit my alt. I was waiting. I was thinking, okay, am I going to get a warning? Nothing. No one in my alliance got touched by it. And in fact, most of the people on my server, no one got anything on alts, that to my knowledge. So I'm wondering whether it's a thing where I don't want to make it sound too sinister, but maybe there's some level of targeting being done. Maybe they're targeting people that they know have a high number of alts, or maybe they know that there are people that are within a certain pay bracket so that if they take away the alts, they know that these people would likely spend.
Interesting.
Um, I'm just pretty because it was a weird thing to me. I don't know if you guys experienced anything about it, but we literally had no issue with alts throughout this whole banning saga.
My interpretation was it had more to do with how much you plunder from a source. So if your alts
Okay.
aren't producing a lot and you're not plundering a lot, then it just won't be targeted. But if they're really high value ones that are getting billions and billions and you're plundering them consistently within a certain period of time, then you get targeted.
Hmm.
I
Okay,
think they're also
that's interesting.
I think they're also trying to target, the players that are trying to sell resources, where you'll have somebody that shows up with an entire alliance of bots and just pluck a bunch of resources and sell it to whichever player that's buying it. They might also be targeting that entire business since they're basically taking money out of Evany's pocket.
Yeah, that's true. I got quite a few of those, in-game mails saying, "Oh, hit me up if you want resources. I'm selling." Those kind of mails. I don't know if you guys have gotten any of those before.
Well, everyone in the discussion saying that they didn't see the RSS sellers get hit, so maybe I don't know. Maybe Evany's just bad at targeting them too.
Well, because they'd be plundered by different targets, right? They wouldn't be targeted by the same person again and again.
Well, that's quite an interesting point actually about how they get attacked by different people. I didn't really think about that because I know I've heard a lot of resource sellers haven't been banned or anything like that. So that's a really interesting point. But yeah, anyway, Oh, sorry. You want to say something?
Yeah, I'll just say one more thing. I think that's one of the bigger issues when it happened too, is there were some players that happened to find a really juicy target in server to server, and because it was just such an insane amount of resources, they ended up having those warnings or those bans, even though it was on a completely different server.
Yeah, no, it's been really, really weird to see Top Game's response to this kind of thing. I mean, I've seen legitimate players get warned and things like that for totally legitimate actions. And Sting, I think you mentioned earlier that, yeah, sorry, I thought it just went totally out of my head. Apologies, it's 2 o'clock in the morning for me right now. My brain's kind of low functioning at the minute. But yeah, I think it's really interesting. Oh, it's about the Top Game's customer support basically saying you can't plunder in game and things like that. Like it's a little like that's just
I saw
crazy.
that
Right?
message. That was ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
That was absolutely ridiculous.
Surely that chat's photoshopped. Like surely they're not really saying that.
I don't think the Evany team knows what the game of Evany is half the time. I actually think it's just people that don't play it that are just hired to
It is.
to fill our discussion or like reply back to our complaints.
Yep.
Yeah. But that being said, though, I do agree with what Singh and Derek were saying that even with everything that's going on, alts are going anywhere. Let's be serious. Forget about terms of service. Forget about banning it. They're part of the culture of the game.
Yep.
Things. Okay, we can separate it. We can say things like bots and things like that are things that maybe should be done away with. Miser has done a lot of this. He's talked about how bad bots are for the health of the game. I agree with that. But alts, people having alts, whether it's 1, 2, 10, 20, that's not going away. At least that's my opinion.
I always thought of bots as another borderline free to play way to help, yourself versus, coiners and everything. I think they kind of go in tandem with alts, and yeah, very honestly, I don't see an issue with that. Just personally, I know it's a controversial subject, but
Well,
Yeah,
okay.
I mean, for me, saying I'm going to agree with you there. I mean, I use ESB,
yep,
and for me, it's a very low coin, borderline free to play kind of way of catching up. I know obviously it's very controversial for those who played Evony Age 1 and Age 2 and things like that. There's a bit of history there with bots and how that kind of turned out in that game. But personally, I'm kind of all for bots as a low coiner, somebody who's played a long time for free to play before this.
I
Although I
think
kind of
I think maybe, particularly for me, I think it's because I've had bad experiences with people using bots. I'll give you one thing. There was someone that was in our alliance and he was using a bot. And I don't know, one day he was chatting with someone and he made some kind of silly comment like he's the only smart one in this alliance. And we're like, what the hell is wrong with
yeah,
you?
that person just sucks.
It's like he's the only smart one in this alliance. We're like, yeah, no, that's not gonna happen. And then there was another experience I had where, someone who is a friend on the server was like, "Oh, can I put my farm in your account? I'm, moving stuff around. I don't know how to, places to put it and stuff like that." And they're like, "Yeah, sure." So we let his farm into the alliance. He's in another alliance, and his farm is running a bot, And we're like, "Dude, what's going on?" And he's like, "Oh, what's wrong?" And we're like, we're not your farms. You're not just gonna put your farm here and be botting off our bosses and things like that without. So, that's my experience, with bots. I don't
Yeah.
know how you guys feel about it.
So I think everybody who plays this game, even just somewhat seriously, should be botting, and that's because it takes so much time. Like Evany takes so much of your free time just to stay relevant.
Yep.
Think of like your entire alliance. Let's say you 100 players in your alliance. They all spawn Vikings, right? Are you are you gonna sit there all day after your work or while you're at work? Joining every Viking rally, right? Evany designed the game so that you have to continuously be playing it in order to stay relevant with everyone else, and it's the game design. That's why people are botting right now. If Evany made it so that you could go into a resource tile for 8 hours and not come back, and you're still gathering the resources, you're still doing something productive, that's great. The only thing that we have like that right now are relics and your alliance tiles, and that's the only thing that somebody that's not botting can do for a long period of time if they want to take a break from Evany, whether it's to sleep or just to work. And the players that don't do that, they're on Evany all the time. It doesn't just take up all their money, it takes all their time, and it's
Hmm.
it's ridiculous. So once you go towards that botting thing, you can just play Evany for maybe an hour or two a day, and the rest of the time the bot is doing what you'd want to do. So I think it gives you back your time rather than you know the the aspect is it morally all right or not? It's like to me, it's and this is my opinion, guys. I think a pay to win game, any game where you pay and you get an advantage over it, you there's no cheating. It's not a fair game. Any glitches, any pink gems that you come across, anything like that, I think you should absolutely abuse it because the game's not fair. It's not built to be fair. So you should abuse whatever advantage you can have, and bots are just one of those advantages.
I agree. The one thing I don't entirely appreciate is point trading to qualify in SVS and whatever, because I think that defeats the like I don't know, defeats like you're hurting someone else by doing that, and you're also just kind of just defeats the spirit of competition. But yeah, do what you got to do.
Yeah, no, I think there's some very interesting points there. I mean, personally, I'm for bots and things like that. I love to go into a deeper discussion, but I'm just a little bit conscious of time, so we're going to move on But first of all, we're going to do the wheel for the second questionnaire. So good luck to everybody. So let me just put this in full screen mode. Best of luck to everybody. Okay, and 3, 2, 1. And congratulations, PG. Well done. Cool. I'll drop you a message after the event, and we'll get that arranged for you. Thank you to everybody that answered that questionnaire there. And I will put in the link to the next one. Don't worry, there's still a chance to win 2 more prizes. So I'll just put them into the Discord right now. Congratulations again, PG. So it's an events and it's an events discussion. So we'll just take a quick 1-minute breather. Or actually, do you want to continue the bot discussion whilst people are?
Yeah, if you've seen recently like a lot of popular games, mobile games specifically, Chaz, this might be interesting for you, based on like your topic or area of research. But idle games where you're kind of progressing in idle time when you're not really there presently playing, you're like collecting some resource or auto hitting some bosses. Dude, War and Order literally has an auto bosser built into the game itself. Like it's this whole grow while you're not entirely there concept, and maybe build your keep up or build whatever up so you can access another threshold. This concept is not, it's not novel. Like it's a thing that people do, games have, and people find appeal in that because we all have lives outside of this game. And I used to be for a year that person who would like literally do Vikings 14 hours a day, like up till 3 a.m. till reset, make sure my alt spawn.
I did that when it was COVID, so I
Yeah.
know how that is.
Literally, yeah, during COVID, same dude. And I remember being on the phone with GDC, like literally, like, hey, bro, make sure your Vikings spawn their last Viking so we can, your alt spawn their last Viking so we can get an extra wave in after 3 a.m. in the morning. And
Mm.
looking back at that, god damn, that was such a waste of time. It was so much of like literal lifespan burning for a mobile game. And I just think it's an answer to the desire for growth while being away concept, this idle game concept that is very popular right now, to the point where competition of Evony is literally building it into their game. So I really see literally zero arguments against bots. Very good for free to play. Alts and bots should definitely be abused as much as you possibly can, and it has as how interested you are into the game.
Yeah, no, I like that. I like what you brought up there. Was it War in Order? You said has
Yeah.
the kind of auto boss button. That's a pretty cool concept.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like I think Evony either needs to increase the gathering times. Like I think it was Derek that was saying that, or just something. In its current state, though, I think botting is the way to go because we also need a life outside the game, right? Like Evony is not the kind of game like Call of Duty, for example. You pick up for 10 minutes and that's all you do for 10 minutes.
Yep.
Evony for the long haul, right? Like a lot of players like myself, and I've been playing for 5 years. There's players that have been playing longer than me. You guys have all been playing for a very long time. And it's about that sustainability. And you don't want to sacrifice your entire life for Evony. So yeah, I think it's
Yeah,
definitely.
I think it's a bit by design, to be honest, because
Mhm.
they design it so that you either have to spend a lot of time on the game or
Mm-hmm.
you have to spend a lot of money on the game.
Yeah, you're right.
So
It is by design.
it's yeah, I think so. Because the Autobot thing, that's a good idea. That's a brilliant idea. If it was built into the game, it would make things so much easier for everyone. But it's not by design. You know, the bosses, auto rallies, things like that, they are not, those options are not there. And I think it's also by design. They want you to spend a lot of time on the game, get to the point where you're fed up with spending time on the game, so you either coin or you quit.
Yep.
Yeah, and by that point, a lot of people have a lot of time invested and feel quite bad about quitting.
Yeah.
Let me ask you guys this question. Instead of having to join a monster rally to get the resources, if Evany just implemented once a teammate kills a monster on your team, everybody on your alliance gets those resources. There's no like you have to join in,
Interesting.
and that would cut out a lot of the botting because that's what it is. It's
I
joining
think
rallies.
in the same spirit as that, I think that's a good idea. That'd be interesting. In the same spirit of that, I think what if there was like some kind of like dungeon or something you could go to, like we'll call it like the Witch 4 dungeon or whatever, and like you, depending on however many marches are at that dungeon at the time, you get that many kills per hour. So if like myself and 10 other teammates go out, we get like 35 kills an hour just idle, like, and it'll last for 100 witches versus like, what we're doing now, which is one witch at a time or whatever it happens to be. I don't know. That could be interesting.
The
But then
chat
that would
remind
take out the
Yeah,
very
that
fun
would be nice.
experience of scanning the map.
Oh, it would eliminate that experience,
Mhm.
most of it.
Oh
Which
my goodness. If there's one thing I would love for them to get rid of is that scanning the map thing.
well, what's
It,
funny, War and Order literally has a search function if you're VIP.
I know.
It's
I
crazy.
know.
I was blown away when that's why I love the game, dude.
I mean, it's like scan the map for bosses, scan the map for.
Tiles,
I don't.
anything.
I don't
Yeah,
know
your
how. I don't know
pyramids,
how.
your
I
log
don't know how you
castles.
guys gather. But for me, I usually send my troops out at night, and it's so annoying when all I want to do is go to bed, and I
Hmm.
need to spend like 30 minutes looking for like 11:15 or 11:16 time.
Yep.
It's so.
Anyway, guys, I'm really sorry. We're gonna have to move on to the next topic. Just I'm a little bit conscious of time, but yeah, thank you all very much for your thoughts on the alt account and the bots and stuff like that. So the next one, oh, the recording for this is just broken. That's always ideal. So the next one, we're gonna talk about mechanics. So it's gonna be really interesting because Derek has been putting out some crazy videos going into the mechanics and things like that.
Yeah, Derek, this is your thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so I'm really
Derek.
interested to hear about this. So, Derek, give us a quick overview. One thing that I'm really interested to know about is the changes to the siege, the later tier siege, and things like that. How do you think that's going to affect the game, if at all? Do you think it really matters? Yeah.
Not okay. So first of all, let me just explain to everyone what got me into the mechanics was defense. I didn't know what defense did in Evony, and that bothered me so much because you'd look up online and you'd see uh, defense adds to HP or it reduces attack or it does some kind of thing. And in a lot of other games, you have armor like and that does some kind of interaction with your HP. So I was obsessed with trying to figure out what defense did, and that's when I came out with this formula. Found out there's troop modifiers that the game doesn't express, and that got me, all into the mechanics. And it's a lot of reverse engineering, going through the uh, just testing every individual troop and just figuring out what these equations are to get consistent results. Now, for a long time, I was having problems with speed and range, which what you're asking about is the extra 76 speed on the siege. And I can tell you, uh, it doesn't do anything. And that's not the answer that people want to hear right now, but it's going to have such a small effect on what's happening in the game. So your tier 13 siege and up are going to be able to hit everybody pretty much in the battlefield as long as you have some kind of siege range bonus. And it doesn't have to be a bracer. It could be a Achaemenid ring. So once your tier 13 and above siege have that ring, they can hit everyone on the battlefield. They don't need to move. And therefore that speed aspect of it is not used. So the speed would only come into play if you don't have any equipment attached that do siege range bonuses. And my next video is going to explain how the battlefield works. So I'm trying not to give too much away right now, but I can tell you that Evony has been dishonest about a lot of these things that they tell you for speed and range, including the skill books. And I harp on it a lot that speed and speed books, for example, for ground and mounted, I could never find anything that they did, at least related to speed and range. I started to think that maybe they do some kind of damage reduction for something else, but I couldn't find that either. But I did some more testing recently just to verify that there was nothing that speed books did for generals, and they don't change speed. So I think Evony keeps this a secret because of their bad coding. They don't want people to know that half the stuff doesn't work right. And I want you guys to also understand this. When looking at the code for Evony, they're supposed to be trap repair. Like, we're supposed to be able to repair our traps, and I'm pretty sure they messed it up, and they put it as repairing siege instead. And that's why you're repairing siege in the trap factory instead of at the workshop or the hospital. You repair it at the trap factory. That was supposed to be traps. And when you look at boss monsters, like why is it that the bird of hurricane is for mounted? You think birds, you think air, you think archers, and when you hit the bird of hurricane on the world map, it's archer debuffs that apply to it. Same thing with the behemoth world boss. It looks like it's built for warrior ground, but that's siege. And the scorpion, like all these things were, in my opinion, coded backward, and Evany just went with it. So I think after my video, there's going to be a lot of complaints to Evany saying that, hey, our what you guys say is going on, the range, the speed, all this stuff's incorrect, and it's what your code says is not what your game says. So I think that's going to be a huge boon to Evany when they're trying to go over this. The other thing is speed itself. Like, let's say the speed books worked, right? You wouldn't really even want to put these speed books on your generals. You wouldn't want your mounted to get ahead of your team, because what's going to happen is that the enemy archers are going to hit your mounted sooner. Right now, for defense wise, archers don't attack until about the third turn. But if your mounted got to the enemy that was defending sooner, the archers would attack, the first or second turn. So this if they fix it, it will change the strategy quite a bit. So as of right now, there's
But
no speed increase.
Derek, on the speed note, I'm sure you've heard this a zillion times, so sorry to say it again, but have you tried putting speed on subgens? And that I remember testing this a while back, and my subgens died faster, which I thought was a good thing because they were acting as layers for, that's what I was thinking at least. They would be acting as layers, dying before my own calves die or dying before my own ground dies. I did so I did notice that my sub troops died quicker, and particularly Arch was left over quicker. But I don't know if that's a figment of my imagination or if something changed or what it is. But I'm wondering about your testing.
So Dana in chat right now, she mentioned this. I think she said that we heard it from what's his name? It's escaping me now. John Wick. Yeah, that's right, John Wick. Talking about this as well, and it's not something I have tested because I mean, maybe it's possible that this skill book is something that only applies to subsidies. What I did, one of my tests to try to figure out if this works is I did a ground rally, because I have all these alts, and I put the same general on all of them, the same level, so they all have the same stats. I'm not worried about, is it going to be attack seeking? So I put a ground speed on one of these generals, and I attacked another keep that had just ground troops in it, just to see which target they would go for first, and it wasn't the one that had speed. So I tested that. I haven't tested the subsidies, and I have done a lot of testing on subsidies. That's something that I was trying to get to once I'm done with all the rest of the mechanics. But it is something interesting that I'll take a look into because, for a long time, I couldn't figure out if speed did anything. But if it does work on subsidies, that'd be an interesting take. And it'd be interesting to see.
And at the same time, I don't even know if it's a good thing because you want your debuff. So I really don't know if you even want your. I wouldn't know if I want my calves and ground to die unless they are actually taking turns away from the enemy. Then that'd be a good thing. But
I think they do. I mean, I haven't, again, my testing has not included subsidies because it adds, there's a
it's
lot
pretty
of
complicated, man.
yeah, there's a lot of complications, a lot of things that happen in a battle. And when somebody asks me, a lot of people ask me, what should I do? Like I'm getting bombarded with questions, and I can give you. I want to explain to people. I will tell you what the mechanics are. I'll tell you what I think is good, but I'm not the most experienced player here. I don't have the same experience of the other players in this chat. And strategies. There are so many different strategies out there. The tier one trap, the tier one defense, that's just one strategy that you can use.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of different strategies out there, and to say which one's the best is
Derek, I will
depending.
say, based on if anyone has not watched Derek's content, I really recommend it. I mean, based on some of your content, specifically the counterattack mechanic, I've reworked my defense just around that because I've seen it proven myself. After paying attention to what you've talked about, I've seen it work in trap keeps, like where calves are killing arch and things like that. So it's been helpful. So if anyone like is really interested in that, I really recommend checking out Derek's YouTube.
I plan on doing a revamp of the Evony mechanics, like a revisit, and I also want to make a worksheet that can be translated into all these different languages, because that's what I get a lot of people asking. You get some players that don't speak English, and they
Right.
want to know the mechanics, and so far I just have my videos in English. So I plan on making that more available to everybody else, because I think if everyone has the mechanics available to them, like all these other games, you play any mainstream game, whether it's something from Call of Duty to Pokemon, right? You can go online and you can see the exact formulas that they use. You can see what the exact stats are, and you can make a strategy based on that to overcome different challenges that you have in the game. And then it actually makes Evony more of a, not
Legitimate
not that it
game.
is, but more skill based,
Yeah.
more strategy based, which would make it, I think, a little bit more pleasant to play.
I agree entirely, man.
Uh, for counterattack, I think counterattack is the most difficult uh, mechanic for people to wrap their head around, because it's a little less intuitive. And so this was confusing me at first. And one of the players that I work with in the Evony Mechanics Discord, Craw, him and me discussed this, because I came up with the formula, but I was like, hey, this works up until all the troops don't die. If not all the troops die,
Mm-hmm.
we have like more wounds on the attacker side. And it was just interesting to see that if one troop survived, I received a ton of wounds on the attackers. So for anybody in the general chat that don't understand the counterattack mechanic, the reason that a lot of your low tier troops are having wounds right now are because they will attack the highest tier troop of the enemy side, and they will receive wounds based on how many troops that they killed. So let's say your tier ones killed 1,000 tier 14s. Well, your tier ones will take damage equivalent to 1,000 tier 14s attacking them, up until you're able to wipe out that layer completely. If you wipe out that layer completely without any of them surviving, you won't take wounds. And that's why the whole counterattack thing works. Now, this doesn't apply if they're not within range of you. So archers, they don't get counterattack damage from mounted until the mounted are right there next to them, because the mounted can't reach them at that point. And this is why tier one traps, if you make 1 billion tier ones, those tier ones can wipe out pretty much any layer, and they'll never take wounds. And that is a strategy that I think for people with the low tier defenses, once you have so many tier ones that you're not taking wounds, that's when you should transition into tier twos. And tier twos, what they'll do is they're not going to be as great as taking damage, because they're worth a lot more in power, they're worth a lot more resources and healing speeds. But what they're going to do is they're going to allow you to punch twice. Where the tier ones, they're not just a defensive item, they are also very offensive as well. They're going to kill a lot of enemy troops. But once the reason people are making tier twos is it shouldn't be for taking damage. You shouldn't be making tier twos to uh, soak up damage. What they're for is primarily only for attacking. And that's so, like, if somebody was to rally you, now your tier ones are taking out a layer and your tier twos are taking out a layer. But it is a double-edged sword. You are now going to be losing more power which you otherwise wouldn't if you only had tier ones. And I didn't explain that in my last tier one video very well.
I
but
guess.
wanted
Sorry, Derek. To cut you. To add to that though, doesn't the points per troop type, like, and the ratio between points and power kind of scale based on, you know, what level it is? So T1s, you may lose a billion T1 power and then the opponent loses a billion T15 power, but you're going to end up losing the point exchange because of the way it's weighted, and it kind of gets better as you go up in tiers.
So actually, so tier one is just great. Like tier one is only worth 1 point, whereas tier 15s are worth 70 points. And I explained this in my last video that some of the mid tiers, especially where you look at tier four, tier five, tier six, their power to point ratio is pretty terrible. So, you know, the reason, yes, higher tier troops are worth more, but think of it this way: your higher tier troops are also getting a benefit most out of buffs. So if you're a higher percentage buffs, they're going to apply better to your tier 14s, to your tier 15s. And you kind of look at it as how strong is the troop compared to how much points is it giving. And that's
Right.
really how you're going to win in this SVS or battlefield scenario, where tier ones with flats, it's like they have 6,000% buffs. That's what it's like for them. And that's why the whole flat refines and tier ones are very strong, is because for the amount of points that they're worth, compared to the stats they gain, that's what makes them so incredibly strong and so incredibly worth a lot. And you could, and in my last video, I demonstrate that you could lose more power, but you could still win in terms of point exchange because of how the points are set up in Battlefield and SVS, and you know, compare that to
Right.
the power.
So on one that I've always wanted to ask you this, because I personally have not been able to figure it out. I have theories about it. But why does T11 hit T4?
Oh God. Okay, so yeah. Okay, not to take too much out of my next video's content, but okay, so here's the thing, guys. Because Evony is not truthful about the ranges of siege, they're completely different from what from what they're talking about. So tier 13 and higher siege, with any type of gear, it doesn't matter. They're going to be able to hit everyone on the battlefield, because if you have a bracer, all your tier 13s and above, they're going to be the same range as an Achaemenid gear ring. And even though the bracer is giving you 15%, the thing is you're reaching the max range that's available. Like there's no more, like you're not going any higher than a certain amount. So it doesn't really matter for those. Bracers are only for uh, siege below tier 13. Okay, and I think that's something that a lot of people don't understand. Is if you attack somebody with a bracer and they have an Achaemenid ring with 5%, let's say they don't even uh, level it up, they're going to attack before you as the defender. So defenders go first in the game, and what's going on is the defenders are going to move up this tier 11, because they're not in range of anyone, and below are going to move up. Well, the tier 4, the tier 1 to tier 4, they're going to move up the most because they have the least amount of range. They can't reach anybody. And the first target they're going to be able to reach are the ground troops. So they're going to move the entire 75, you know, units ahead in the battle. Well, your tier 11 are at that sweet spot where they can reach those siege right there, and the other siege, they stayed kind of far back. So the tier 11 are going to be attacking the tier 1 through tier 4 siege first, most of the time. Or it depends. It depends on what type of buffs the enemy has, really. And that goes into play, because and it also depends on your buffs as well. Like, because if you don't have any buffs on your tier 11, they're probably going to be hitting the range troops first. So I have to work it out in my head.
So
But
buffs impact mechanics, like as far as which tier will attack what tier?
Say again.
So like the multiplier, like the buff multiplier, buff addition, that has an impact on siege mechanics.
Yeah, well, look at it this way. The siege gets staggered,
Right.
and that's what changes everything. The siege gets staggered. So yes, those buffs that you add for your equipment and for your skill books, those stagger your siege. So your lower tier siege are going to be ahead of your higher tier siege. And that's going so when the tier 11s come to attack, they're looking for, they have a priority. They have a priority of siege, and they have after siege it's archers. So they're looking for siege. Once they see siege, they're going to attack the first siege that they see. Well, the tier 1s to tier 4s had to move more than all the other siege because they have the least amount of range.
See,
And
I'm following with all of this, and I agree with all of this too. I've had the same idea about it, but what I don't understand is what is the defending T12 and 11 siege doing where it's not being engaged with the attacking T11 and 12?
let me think of this. I hold on, I have to bring up my Excel sheet. There's a lot of info.
It-
'Cause
Yeah,
I visualize it
it's
as
like
well.
we're getting into a siege lecture now.
Yeah, I think we're
No, no,
getting really deep into it, but that's
I mean,
I get, and I listened to the interview with let's see, um, Bear.
yeah.
That and talking about the siege rallies, and what you were saying was absolutely correct. With the tier 11 siege, it has that top layer of tier 15s, tier 14s, tier 13s that protect it from siege, and for the first couple of battles, uh, only the top tier siege are going to be able to attack siege. Your tier ones, all the way up to tier uh, tens, they're going to attack ground, archers, and then eventually, after several turns, they'll be able to reach siege.
Mm.
Uh, so you're only the tiers above them are only going to be able to take that out. So let me look at it here. So you asked about the defending tier 11. So what is defending tier 11 range at? Okay. Let's say that they have a bracer. So what's going to happen is the tier 11s, they're going to move up. Uh, okay. And they're not going to be able to reach the attackers. So the tier 11s, uh, so here's what happens. So in the battle scenario, all the defending ground go first, then the attacking ground. Then the defending mounted, then the attacking mounted. Defending archers, then the attacking archers.
Mm.
Okay, so now it's going to be the defending siege. Well, because tier 11s can't reach across the entire battlefield, they can't reach the enemy siege. The enemy siege hasn't moved yet. So the first
Okay.
shot, the first attack that the tier 11s are going to do are going to be on the enemy on the attacking archers, and that's only if you have a bracer. If you don't have a bracer, your tier 11s are going to attack the ground. Your defending tier 11s are going to attack ground first.
Mm-hmm.
Only with bracer with a level 4 skill book will they reach the archers on the first turn. And the same thing like your tier 9s, if they're defending, they're going to attack ground first because they're not going to attack mounted because mounted is the least priority for siege. So uh, if your siege are not attacking range and they're not attacking other siege, they're attacking ground. And that's why when you attack somebody, you should have a higher ground layer. Like people do different layers of 1,000, 5,000, 10,000, whatever it is. What they should be doing is, just big layers of ground, and all the other layers. It doesn't really matter as much on how many you put in there. You just don't want them to die to counterattack.
I'm just gonna say RSP. Does this sound familiar? Just saying. All right, continue.
Well, I remember like a lot of people like say, yeah, RSP. We put a lot of ground, like archer rallies and stuff like that. And I was like, kind of want to mention, like, if you guys just put basically use your archers with general layers, and somebody throws in a ground general with ground troops, it's I think it'd be a little bit better because
Interesting.
that ground general is going to give those ground troops a lot more buff, and the enemy still has to get through those ground troops.
I might give that a shot. Actually, that sounds interesting.
Uh, any other questions about mechanics? I kind of spilled
Oh,
the story.
dude, we need a
I've
whole
got
other
I've
call.
got one.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Gonna take it back a bit from, the siege topic. Gonna go back to the speed. Okay.
Okay.
Now, my understanding of how speed worked was that speed was meant to be the counter to range. Okay. So let's say you're, an attacking general. You're attacking with Arch. The Arch has the range bonus skill book.
Mm-hmm.
My understanding was that the speed was meant to be the counter to that because the range now have, they have more range to fire from. So having speed, meant that your troops could move across quicker and try and get to the range quicker.
I think
Now,
that's
the way I understood,
good. Sorry.
yeah, okay, the way I understood it was that the speed was really effective when you're on the defending side. And I've had some experience with this. Well, it's anecdotal. I actually shared one of my videos. I showed a report where I took a range rally. Okay, range rally. You would expect that, okay, my ground would kill range. You would expect that. But my ground hardly did anything. And after that report, I decided to put ground speed on my wall general. And I've never had a situation like that since.
So
So that's one thing. So I wanted to ask, what do you think about that? For the way speed works on the defending side.
so
Yeah, go
uh
ahead.
yeah. So here's the difficult thing about reading your reports. Yeah, I have a lot of players that say, that this troop doesn't do any damage because they didn't get any kills. And then they think that troop is useless. And I think this is why tier 12s became so mythical among the community, because they seemed like they got a lot of kills compared to other units. One of the reasons why your troops are not going to get a lot of kills is they might just be busy with layers. So they might just be killing the enemy's layers, and then eventually, depending on how many layers the enemy had, if your siege killed some of them, if they didn't kill some of them, depending on how much lower tier siege you had, will depend on what troops actually land the final blow, what troops that actually do the killing. And I think that causes the community a lot of like headache because they can't figure out, okay, which troop should I build to counter this? People will send, like what we were just talking about, ground. You'll send ground with your archers, and you're like, oh, my ground didn't get any kills, that they must be useless. But what you didn't see is that your ground defended against a lot of the siege attacks, and what that did is allowed you to have some more layers, which allowed your archers to do a lot more killing. As far as speed on the defense, uh, and I remember a lot of people said, "Hey, I have speed on my on my defense wall, and I think I took less damage from archers." It seemed like, but every battle is different, and
Mm-hmm.
that is the hard part to take, is if you're not taking the same exact attack on the same exact defense and just changing out the speed. Because I've done this where I I attack somebody with speed on the defense on the attacker just to see if there's any change at all, and I couldn't find any. And this was when I first was telling people, hey, I don't see any changes in speed on controlled tests. But I can tell you now that I know that the mechanics, I know how the battlefield is laid out. I know exactly what's going on with the range and speed, and I did test, like, does um I tested it specifically on the defense. And what I did is, and I'm going to show this in my video to show people how the test is, but speed, like, mounted have a certain speed. and I'm gonna just break it to you guys. It's not 600. It's 300. The mounted are slower than the ground. Okay, that's why
Wow.
ground get there first. It's in my first video I thought it was because there's like they start out staggered. No, it's just Evony lies to us. So, mounted have 300 speed. So what you need to do to test if a speed skill book does anything is you need to adjust your siege to basically have 370 5 range and then 375 and 375 range. And what you're testing is okay, at 375 I know my siege are going to well, not 375. It's sorry, I'm doing this backwards. 225 less than what the battlefield is. So 225 less than what the battlefield is. And what this is doing is it allows you to okay, if the mountain moves 300 units, this siege will hit it because the siege will also move 75 units. And I know this is a bit confusing without knowing what the battlefield length is. It's again, I still have to make a video on this, but basically what I did is I used siege to determine if speed added to the mounted, and it didn't. I just basically went up an additional 5, and the speed for the mounted did not increase at all. They did not move any farther on the battlefield, and I think this is just because Evony called it wrong. I don't. I think this is what maybe Evony intended. Now, the skill books for range for both siege and archers are not what they say they are. For siege, level 1, at each level gives you 5, not 50. 5, that's it. Archers give you 17. I know that's a weird number, and that was really weird and difficult to calculate, but they give you 17. And the overall range of the Evony battlefield, I'll go ahead and tell you guys a little sneak peek into my future content. It's 1500. It's 1500. That is the battlefield range of Evony. And I know right now people are like, what the hell? How does that work? Because obviously siege have like a huge range and they're going beyond that. That's because the siege ranges are wrong. So I'm gonna cover that. In
Man,
a
I'm looking
video.
forward to your next video, dude. I'm so hyped for that.
Yeah, I'm gonna cover this. I'm gonna tell you guys how I know all this stuff. It's well, somewhat how I know. I'm gonna still keep a little bit, but same thing with archer towers. Archer towers, the range is 1500. They can attack anybody on the battlefield. Traps attack anybody on the battlefield, but they attack last. So traps and archer towers attack last. So if you want to, if you have an empty keep or somebody that's ghosting and you don't want to lose any troops, you could do two things. You can either just send tier 13, tier 14 siege at them with a general with a bracer, and you won't get attacked by the archer tower, or you could just put layers of one mounted troop each, like a couple layers of mounted troops, because the archer tower will only attack them instead, and then you'll be able to just attack them. And well, that's if they don't have any traps. If they do have traps, that doesn't work. But the first one works whether or not they have traps. If they have a ton of traps, you can just attack them with tier 13, tier 14 siege, and it'll burn them. Be careful though; they can always unghost and hurt you quite a bit. So I don't want to take too much time on mechanics. I know I kind of
Okay.
No, that was very good. Thank you very much. I think you've
yeah
yeah, you taught us a lot, man. That was brilliant. I am going to move on a little bit though. I'm a bit conscious of time, especially for some of our European players. It's approaching 3 or 4 o'clock, depending on whereabouts you are. So we're going to move on
Thank God it's
to.
Saturday.
What was that, sorry, Aka?
I said, thank God it's Saturday.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. If I
But we're
if I
going
had work the next day, I couldn't do this.
to. Yeah. But we're going to move on to the next giveaway thing, and then we'll move on to the next questionnaire, and then we'll go on to the Q&A. So good luck to everybody who's entered. 3, 2, 1. Ooh, congratulations, Pysing. Nice one. Well done. I'll contact you after the event and we'll get that arranged. All right. Congratulations. Brilliant. Cool. So, without further ado, I'm just going to stick on the next question round. Just give me 1 wee second to get that up. And I'll stick it in event discussion, and it's also going to be in the events channel as well. So this is going to be the last questionnaire / giveaway round that we do. So I'll just give you guys a couple of minutes, then we'll get started on the Q&A. So get thinking of your questions for the speakers, pick their brains, and yeah, hopefully get some good questions and get some value out of it. But yeah,
Chaz, are you going to be reading out the questions to us, or should we be looking at chat?
I'll read them out for you.
Okay, cool.
I'll just pick out some interesting questions, and let you guys take it away and knock it out the park.
Awesome.
Derek, that's made me laugh. Your logo reminds me of Dunkin' Donuts. That's a good thing. That's brilliant.
I'll tell you guys, while we're waiting on that, I'll tell you one mechanic that I still have to do a little bit more testing to exactly figure out. But there are cases where you would think that your ground troops, if someone's attacking you with ground troops, that they have to get through all your ground troops and then all through your mounted troops in order to attack your archers, because your archers in siege are obviously hiding behind your mounted troops. And there is something that causes your archers and siege to keep going forward to the front lines. Like, they just keep moving to the front lines, and once they get to the front lines, those ground troops are going to stop attacking mounted, and they're going to attack your range or siege instead. The same thing happens with mounted. If you send mounted at somebody that has range and siege, the mounted will attack the range first, but then they'll eventually attack the siege instead of the range, and the range might end up killing all the mounted. You'll notice that all your siege are dead, but your range are still alive. That is something I have to do a few more testing to see exactly what causes it. I have a few ideas, but that is the last piece of the puzzle, really, for the mechanics. And obviously, I'll look at the subsidies. I'll test out the speed, because maybe speed was supposed to be a subsidy item. Who knows?
Yeah, it could be, dude. I was dying laughing when you were saying like the 76 speed does nothing, because it just shows how little like the devs actually know about their own game. Like, it's just...
To be honest, like when somebody pointed out to me that it was a speed that changed,
yeah,
and I looked at it and it's 76, I'm like, what's that going to do?
The only other thing, so here's the other thing that I had. The old Evony, I think, troops targeted based on certain attributes, and one of them was speed. And whichever troop had the most speed, that let them maybe go first or get targeted or something like that, like by their archers. I was like, okay, maybe it has something to do with priority, and I can't find any evidence of that. The other thing is, I kind of mentioned in a lot of my videos that it's the highest tier that gets attacked first. That's true on solos, but if you're reinforced, what it really is the troop with the highest attack generally will get attacked first. So if like, let's say you have a tier 1 defense and you have a bunch of reinforcements inside of you. Well, what's going to happen is, once the enemy gets down to your tier 8, gets down to like the tier 8 mounted, they're going to target your tier 1 mounted before they target the reinforcing tier 8s and tier 7s, because your tier 1s are going to have higher stats than those other mounted troops. So just so you know, it really is whatever troop has the highest attack, but that generally it also makes sense for the troop with the highest tier. Because I talk about solo attacks, but if you are reinforced, they will attack the troop with the highest tier, highest attack. The same thing happens with rallies. So you'll notice that a lot of times the troops with the highest attack, whoever has the highest attack in the rally, they're going to be targeted first in a lot of cases.
You know what? Why you brought that up? I'm gonna ask you, and I'm saying, and nice, ask you guys as well, in case you know. How do the buffs for reinforcing troops scale.
Okay, so your buffs for your troops, and I want to, before I like say this like 100% for sure, because I do testing on this, but I do a lot of extensive testing before I say this is fact, this is law in Evony. But from my testing so far, your buffs are your buffs. Whatever your buffs are your buffs and your buffs only. Of course, there are reinforcement buffs that get applied depending on like the general that's in the embassy and stuff like that. As far as debuffs are applied to who owns
The
the
city.
building. And
Yeah.
Ebony's, when you look at the report, you're gonna be like, no, that's not true. The debuffs are different because the report will show whoever has the highest debuffs. So if you have somebody reinforcing you that has higher ground attack debuffs than you, it's going to show their debuffs in the report. But from my testing, those debuffs aren't applied. It's just the report. Imagine this, guys. Ebony's lying to us again. But it's from my report, the debuffs seem to only be applied to the building owner.
Yeah.
Or
I think
from the building owner.
I've noticed that from experience as well.
The same thing with rallies. Like when you rally, yeah, you can't stack all those debuffs. It's the rally setter that the debuffs
Mm.
are used on. And I know there's a recent video talking about stacking monster debuffs in a rally, and it works for subsidies. It doesn't work for a rally, unfortunately. So yes, if your subsidy generals have monster debuffs, it will work for them. If you use your subsidies to solo attack monsters, if that's what you do. But rallies, people that join your rally, those debuffs don't apply. They don't work.
Cool. Well, that was great. Thank you very much. I think we're gonna move on to some of the kind of people in chat. I've got some Q and A's. So the first one is, do you like pickles? It's a great question to start off with. I don't know how to put that one in. But yeah, oh, you love pickles. That's great to hear. I'm sure they'll be very happy. But yeah, if people watching, if you guys want to start putting your questions in now, I'll pick out some and we'll get these experts to hopefully answer your question. And we'll see what we get. So if you guys want to start sticking your questions in, we can see what happens. Okay, so first question by Mr. Byronus43. Sorry if I've just absolutely butchered your name. So in a rally, do the rally setters buffs apply to the entire march, or does the march performance vary depending on each joiner individually?
I think that's what I was just answering. Is that your
Oh.
buffs
Each
are
one is
applied.
individual.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Individual buffs. But like Derek was saying, debuffs for the person that's setting the rally.
And I think the thing is, once all the mechanics are, once we have a good setting of it, you can adjust your rallies. You can do mixed rallies. You can adjust your layers to be more beneficial to the team. So here's an idea that I had. And I don't want to go crazy, but I was hoping that speed buffs worked, because I was going to. I like sharing like alternate weird strategies, things to do, and I was going to suggest people to put ground speed or mounted speed on their ranged generals, because what that would do is you could join a ground rally with your ranged generals, and it would make it so that your protective layers are attacked first instead of the ground rally. But it didn't work out. So
I think
It
it
would
works
be more-
for one turn, I think, and then it just doesn't work. But RSP's tested that too, but I'm not entirely sure.
What I think would be really interesting too is if they had skill books that reduced your speed.
Ooh,
That's interesting.
I do think I like the debuff skill books if they weren't behind a huge money wall. The debuff skill books would be a nice little additional to the strategy if you could just get them like any other skill book. The fact that they're behind a giant money wall, and Akiasha made a great video on this. It's just not viable unless you are just the top tier biggest spender player. And that's unfortunate because I think that would be great for everybody to use.
Yeah. Devo skill books was a good idea that the implementation was just awful. That's my opinion. Just very bad.
Eventually,
The
they'll
way they are now, they're not really worth getting.
eventually they'll make it available to everyone without that paywall, but I think so anyway. They'll just make it like one of those events where you can buy it instead of Blood of Ares or something. Do we have another question?
Yeah, so let me just pick one out real quick. So this one's from Dana13, very active in the Evony community. What's the best advice you have to improve PvP at a higher level?
That's not for me.
Like skill wise, or I'd say read your reports, number one, as far as like building your keep and everything. But as far as skill wise, just really focus. Like pay a lot of attention when you're playing the game, and a lot of the actions that you take become like triggers. Like you'll have, okay, next I need to set a rally. This sequence will just process automatically of your fingers moving to point A, B, and C. It's just practice. It really is just practice. And whether that's like, okay, I'm red, I know I need a port, or I need to recall my troops. Like there's little triggers that happen, and just practice getting faster and faster at it, and over time that will build up naturally. So it's it's a simple answer, but practice really is the best way, and just paying attention to what you did that worked and what you did that didn't work.
Yeah, fair enough. That sounds pretty good to me.
Yeah.
Uh,
I'd like to.
okay, you wanna
Oh,
go?
sorry. Yeah, I just
No,
wanted
you
to
go.
add to what Singh said. The other thing that I think you need to do if you want to get better at PvP is don't be too focused about winning. Don't be too focused about winning. Try out new stuff. Try out new strategies. Try out new attacks. Try out defenses. Try out swaps. Try out whatever you want to try out, and use Battlefield or whatever as your chance to practice those things. Because otherwise, you're not going to get a chance to practice them. So don't be too focused on winning. You don't have to win every single battlefield. Take some time, practice those things, get good at them, then you can focus on winning.
I think another tip that I have too is have an exit strategy, whatever you're doing. Like when you're going to hit a
Tier 3s are not going to be able to protect the tier 15s of that troop type. However, reinforcements, right now we reinforce people with basically a march. It's like whatever your march is, that's generally what you're reinforcing the player with. But if you reinforce somebody with bigger layers, bigger like let's say you reinforce them, I'm just say range for instance or siege. What you could do instead is instead of your typical siege march, add different layers where it's basically 100,000 of every siege. And what that's going to do is you're going to be able to take out the enemy's uh, layers in a rally. Well, and that's your goal. Your goal is to take out as many layers in a rally as you can when you reinforce somebody. And that's what the biggest one of the biggest things that reinforcements do is they take out layers to allow that keep that has millions of layers. Like if you're 20 billion keep, you have millions of troops, and those troops are going to decimate whatever the main troop is once they're able to attack it. So your goal for reinforcements, take out the enemy layers, and of course, also help protect the player that you're reinforcing from getting zeroed. Also, sorry, mention
No,
this
go
too.
for it.
if you're zeroed, if you have no more troops or whatever, heal a layer of troops and join rallies, and make sure you also send a general with that as well. Because what you're going to do by sending your troops by joining those rallies, you're adding protective layers, so you could still be useful even if you don't have any more troops. Just heal layers constantly, join rallies, because the more people that join a rally, the more protective troops that are in there, the more that you're able to protect the main forces in that rally, so you can still be useful even after you're zeroed.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. Yeah, thank you very much for answering that question, guys. That was great. Singh, I've actually got a bit of a question for you. So you were, correct me if I'm wrong, but you were playing like a 40 bill account before, and you've now switched to 10. It's in the tens anyway. It's like how much
It's like
is your
14 bill right now.
14 bill. So you've switched from being from setting the rallies, and you're no longer setting the rallies. Is that right? How are you kind of finding that transition, if you like, from being the rally setter to your current position within RSP?
Oh, it's hard, dude. I feel like rally joiners have it harder than rally setters, I think. I always tell my team that. But I mean, we'll see if this is the situation permanently. I'm really not sure. But for now, it is the situation. But the transition's been very interesting because there's a whole new set of challenges that being a rally joiner has. And there's a lot of assistant roles that people can play, whether it's flipping portals or calling if the target teleported or speeding the rally for the rally setter. There's a lot of things that you can do in the meantime. You can constantly watch alliance war and see when they set on us. You can reinforce. There's finding targets. There's all these different skill sets like clear communication that a very good rally joiner can work on, and that's something I need to work on. And I mean, I guess it's, to some degree, like I have some experience doing that, but not as much as I've had in the past. And being in the rally joiner role and even being zeroed quickly in the past, I've been extremely humbled, and it's been interesting to see what it feels like to be a little bit smaller and maybe a little more powerless in a battlefield. It's hard. It's actually harder, I think, than setting rallies.
Yeah, no, that's quite an interesting perspective. I've always been too small to be the rally setter on my teams, so I've always been the one joining. But no, that's a really interesting perspective. I actually would have thought the rally setter would have been quite a lot more difficult, but you're obviously kind of seen both sides of it and have a bit of a different perspective on that, so that's pretty cool. Thank you very much. So Frost is asking, what would be the best thing to teach to help newer players find out what they should build for? So I'll start this one off, get it rolling a little bit, because I've got a lot of experience kind of starting over new. That kind of seems to be my theme when it comes to Evony. One thing I'd say is, obviously teach them the basics about the one troop joining the rallies. One T1 ground troop without any gens will die when they join the rallies and things like that, so there's no return march. All those kind of basics. Another thing is to be very careful about the gear that they build early days. So obviously, you don't want to be building before dragon armor. Some are even going to argue you don't want to build before I don't even know how to pronounce it. The armor you get, yeah, that's it. Thank you. The armor you get at key 33. I think the most sense makes the best sense is to not build until you get to key 33. But also I appreciate that players want to play and things like that. Like, at the end of the day, we're here to have fun, and a lot of people don't want to grind that out. Especially, if they're new players, quite often tend not to be so heavily invested in coin quite as much yet. So it'll take them a little while to get to key 33. So yeah, I think definitely wait at least until Dragon, but preferably tell your new players to wait until key 33. But what do you guys think in terms of like troop compositions and things like that for new players, and what should we be building there? Personally, again, for me, I think you wait until you get your key 33 before you start worrying about troops and stuff like that. But again, I appreciate I'm currently R5 on S1404, so we're literally about to have our first SVS next week. A lot of my players want to get involved in the action and things like that. So for me, I've been kind of saying, like, you guys really should wait until you get that gear. But if not, definitely wait until you get T12. Would you guys agree, disagree? What's your kind of thoughts on the early days stuff? I mean, I know a lot of people right now are talking about debuffs in chat, and I totally agree with you, but it's one thing to do, what's right and proper in Evony, and it's another thing just to go out and have fun. Especially if you're a new player, like you want to, you're playing this game for fun. A lot of them don't really kind of have the long term goals and mindset like a lot of the kind of older players that have been around for a while.
Yeah, if you're new to Evony, my suggestion is quit. Uh,
It's like about face and get out of here.
yeah, what's gonna happen is you're gonna build social bonds and you're gonna get invested in the game, and it's gonna take a lot of time and money, or if not money, just a lot of time. I think the best thing to do is find good resources for new players. I think the two resources or three resources I looked a lot at was for websites. It was the One Chilled Gamer. I think they have a good diagram of how the monster rallies work, because that's what you're going to be focused on. Your new players, monsters. You're gonna throw all your troops at the monster, and you're gonna be like, oh hey, I got wounds on my siege and ground, and you don't know how that whole thing works. And the Evony wiki, I think the guy that runs it's Japanese. He has phenomenal resources on that website. And then of course a lot of these YouTubers. I remember when I first started, I was watching Miser's videos. I was watching Red Evony, trying to get better. Looking at the events, I'd see Genghis would always be up to date on the events. And if you're looking for competitive all stars, you have King Sing, right? So uh, one thing to know is where are these resources for these new players, so they can learn if they want to learn. A lot of players in Evony don't care to learn. It's just a farm simulator. So hopefully we can aggregate a lot of these good resources into one spot where you could just give it to a new player, and then they'll have those resources available to them.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you there, Derek, about what you're saying about trying to put it into one area. I'm actually, so part out with the event, I run TheriaGames.com. This is a very new guide site. It's very much half-baked, very under construction. Everything's a total work in progress. But that's something that I'm trying to do. I'm trying to gather all the information, put it into one place, make it a little bit of an easier process for new players. I mean, right now I've started building beginner guides. They're pretty rubbish right now. I've been doing so much on the website, trying to build some calculators and things like that, and they're trying to, just pump out general content about, just like keep requirements and stuff like that. But yeah, no, that's something that I'm really working on right now. Is trying to corroborate all that information, put it into one place, and kind of streamlining that process. Because I do think it's right now there's a lot of great information out there, but it's a little bit, for a new player, I think it's a little bit here, there, and everywhere, and it can be a little bit hard to kind of understand where to go. But yeah, that's something that I'm actively trying to help right now. But I mean, some good websites, if there are any newcomers in this chat, EvonyGuideWiki.com, One Chilled Gamer. I think it's Evony TKR Guide or something like that. And then here at TheriaGames.com, I'm also trying to collaborate all that kind of information in one space, although I'm a one-man band, so it's taking quite a while. And then obviously you have the YouTubes of our speakers today, all absolutely great sources of information. I mean, they've been offloading absolute gems all throughout this event. So if there's any new players watching, definitely check out their stuff. I've got another quick question here from Sierra Moon. Apologies again if I butcher that name. My pronunciation on these things is absolute rubbish. So they're basically asking about instead of creating T1 cav walls, T1 ranged walls, what's your kind of opinion on that? Sierra, correct me if I got that wrong. But what's your guys' opinions on that kind of idea? Because obviously right now the meta is the cav walls.
I think he was talking, maybe he was asking T1 range to kill T1 Cav. I've heard of it. I don't know much about it. Maybe Derek has more info.
What was the exact question? Because a lot of people also ask, should I use tier 1 ground instead of tier 1 calves? And that's absolutely a viable strategy. Tier 1 ground are also very good. But if the question is using attacking with tier 1 with a flats on the general. This works at. I know it would work for lower to how can I say this, newer servers. Where there's not players with keep 40s and all that stuff around. That will work. But like because I've done it. I've done tier 1 attacks and it does work. You do come out in it. However, if you're trying to target a tier 1 mounted keep, look at, first of all, scout them, see what they have. If they have a lot of siege, you can take out their siege first. Just attack them with siege. It takes out their siege. It allows your archers to be able to take out their mounted a little bit easier. If they have ground, attack them with mounted. What you're trying to do is take out all their layers as much as you can, so your archers can specifically only focus on those low tiered troops, those mounted troops. Rallies, if they allow themselves to get hit by a rally, absolutely rally them. As far as hitting them with lower tier troops, what you want to do is if it's just, let's say, 500 million tier 1s, and then every other mounted troop they have above that is just 1,000. They only have 1,000 tier 2s, 1,000 tier 3s, all the way to tier 14s. You can hit them with a ranged march with not so many troops. You basically just want to have enough troops to take out those layers, so that your next range march will target specifically their tier 1s. But that's a little difficult to do, especially if you don't have two ranged generals. Uh, but that might be what they were asking. It's just yes, there's a lot of strategies to this, and there's not one single best strategy at it.
Yeah, I think it was. I'll just type in right now, so we'll just get some clarification on that. But yeah, that was absolutely grand. Thank you very much.
Tier 1 range as meat, Sailorman's. Oh, that's what she's asking. No, absolutely not. Do not use tier 1 archers as a meat wall, because they are the last troops that are attacked in the entire defense that you have. Siege have to go through all your siege, and then they'll go through all your top tier archers, and they'll finally get down to your tier 1 range. And any other attack will go after your mounted and ground first. So tier 1 range do not work out as a meat shield. They will work as they will kill layers. You can use tier 1s to kill enemies' main forces. They're a cheap way for that if you have flat attack, but don't use them as a meat shield.
Cool. Thank you very much for clearing that up. Do we have any more questions? Will we make this one last question before we close out the event? It's just I'm a bit cautious of the time. Anybody else want to go for that last question? Okay. So, question for Singh. Your thoughts on going after rally setters versus fillers for Bok/challenge? It's not like All Stars where you have multiple rally setters and you got your alliance full power before they start running out of troops. Chaz, how'd you get so cute?
Wait, I'm supposed to answer a question, right? Or hold on. Your thoughts on going after rally setters versus fillers? Oh, that's a great question. Nowadays, depending on the setter's power, we typically like to, if we really just want to like kind of kill them, like we go for the setter. Teams like Neff are very difficult because they have multiple setters. Teams like HOT are very difficult because their setter, well, he's reasonably sized now, but he was difficult. And they also have a 90 bill keep, so that's quite difficult. But generally speaking, taking out the setter, especially if it's a talented person, is a very good move. A lot of teams combat this by pre-raining the setter, such as RSP, so don't rally me, please, so that they don't die. But yeah, even in All Stars, even in especially in All Stars, where I know someone is talented and maybe doesn't have, like Viper, for example. If it was possible to take out Viper, I would take him out as soon as possible. Like, or if BK was able to be taken out, I'd try to take him out as quick as possible. So yeah, strategically, it would be the right move to take out the setter if it's actually viable, if they're a decent size.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you very much. Well, unfortunately, I think that'll draw to the end of the Q&A today. Let me just quickly sort out this last survey, and we'll do the last giveaway. So just bear with me 1 wee second. And we'll just get. So I was too fixated on listening to the Q&A. I forgot to get this pre-prepared. Just give me 1 wee second, everybody, and I'll be right with you in the next giveaway. And just pull that over. Cool. So here we go. On to the last giveaway for this event. Best of luck, everybody. 3, 2, 1, let's go. Ooh, Mr. Boss just about pips it. Nice one, well done, congratulations. That's great. Like I said before, I'll be in touch with all the giveaway winners after the event, and we'll get that sorted out for you. And yeah, thank you to everybody that answered all the questionnaires and things like that. It's really, really appreciated. It's really going to help with my research. It's also going to help with Theria in general. That's absolutely brilliant. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Chaz, for hosting this. It was freaking awesome. It was way more fun.
Yeah, well, I was just about to say thank you very much to all our speakers. Singh, Miser, Aka, and Derek, thank you all so much for coming. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on here. I think from the further chat that we're getting in right now, everybody's really appreciated you guys taking up your time and coming to chat with us. It's been really, really awesome. And yeah, thank you very much, and thank you to everybody that tuned into the event. It's a bit of a relief to me that we got quite a good number. So very happy with that. Thank you very much for taking up your time to come and watch us. And yeah, really appreciate it. I've got the speakers' YouTube channels on the screen right now. I'm just about to stick them into chat. If you guys want to check them out, I'm going to plug it into the events section. So in goes things. So yeah, if you like what you're hearing today and you want to go check out some more of their kind of content and stuff like that, it's going in #events right now. Should be 1 wee second.
Miser. Yeah. So where's the after party at?
Oh, is this the point where we stop streaming and we just start drinking? Yeah, no.
That would be a good point. That would be a good point. I wouldn't mind a drink or two before bed.
But yeah, thank you once again to everybody. You know, like I was saying earlier, check out TheriaGames.com if you're at all interested in what I'm doing on the kind of guide site front of things. It's currently very, very half-baked, so take that with a massive pinch of salt. If anybody has any thoughts about the events, if you could please DM me, I'd really appreciate the feedback. I'll hopefully, look to run a couple more of these events in the future, maybe 3 months apart, 6 months apart, something like that, if the feedback's quite positive. But I hope everybody's had a blast, and I heard Aka's hosting the after party.
Yeah, drinks at my place.
Sounds good. Well, thank you very much, everybody. I'm gonna end the stream there and things like that. But yeah, thanks everybody for coming along. Really appreciate the massive turnout that we had, and thanks again to all our speakers. You've been absolutely great.
Cheers,
thanks everyone.
guys. Take care.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Thank you so much for watching this video and supporting the channel. If you liked what you saw, please consider hitting the like button and checking out other videos on the Miser's Guide to Evony. I'll see you in the next video.